Hi, everyone. Welcome to the House Democratic Caucus. It is the afternoon of May 6th, and we are in the middle of working on S325. We took a break because the committee had to hear an amendment that came in late. And so we thought we'd take this time to go over the next two amendments. There might be more tomorrow, but I think this is what we have for today. And so I'm going to turn it over to Rep. Sheldon. And oh my God, Chapin, I wanted to call you Granny, and I knew that wasn't the right thing. I'm sorry. Late in the day. On that note, I'm going to turn it over to Amy and Ella.
Okay, we have two amendments that we've looked at in committee. The first one is to extend the dates for the interim housing exemptions to 2030. That's the way it came over from the Senate. That our committee actually spent a lot of time with this, and we felt like, first of all, those were lined up with the road rule and tier 3 extensions also. So the Senate, that was the logic they used for extending them. And so we discussed it pretty in depth and decided that it made a lot of sense to link it to a year after the future land use maps would be completed, so that towns would have an opportunity to opt in to a 1A or 1B here, so that they would be choosing their destiny. We've heard a lot from communities questioning us, and I feel like this is a chance for them to decide for themselves if they want to go ahead and have exemptions to Act 250. So a vote was 7-4 against.
You thought 2028 was enough time?
We think that's enough time, and I think it's important to know that that date is like the date that you need to start your project by. It's not completed by, it goes forward from there. The other, I guess, the other thing is that we're getting a report back on whether the interim exemptions are actually meeting the needs, the housing needs that we think they're going to be meeting. Many of you probably saw the article in 7 days. Recently, researchers found that actually the housing that's getting built in Burlington is quite expensive, and they had a way of showing that it was driving prices up further, not actually lowering them. So I think the housing exemptions that we are talking about are not limited to workforce housing. They're not limited to affordable housing. It's any kind of houses in these areas. I think that's important to note. Anyway, I'll leave it there.
Okay. Let me just stop there for a second.
I guess I just want to clarify, I'm not Chapin from East Montpelier. And I'm sorry if Amy just said this, I'm just, my head's a little spinning from today. Just to clarify that right now, these exemptions all run out in 2027, by the beginning of 2027 or middle of 2027. So we opted instead of extending them all the way to 2030 as the Senate proposed in alignment with, as Amy said, the extended rulemaking that they were proposing on tier 3 and the road rule that 2028, a year additional time made sense. So I just want to make sure everybody understands that right now they're set to expire in 2027.
And I would like to just remind everyone that the bill had 2028 in it, and that came out as a vote of 11-0 from committee. Are there any questions?
I'm sorry, could you repeat? You said 11-0 unfavorable or favorable?
The original bill that we will be voting on eventually had a vote of 11-0 out of committee, and it had the date of 2028 in it. This amendment was found unfavorable by a vote of 7-4.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Just to be clear, there are two amendments, and this is, you said the first amendment, this is the Charlton amendment? I haven't looked at it just yet. Okay, thank you.
Hi, it's Scott Campbell, St. Johnsbury. Just what were the dates again? So was it January 1, 2028? as opposed to, you said sometime in 2027, is that, you know, what time? So, in other words, how much of an extension is being proposed?
Yes, in the bill that was passed out of committee, the date is January 1, 2028, I believe for all of them. And some of them had either been January 1, 2027, or July 1, 2027. So either a 6 or 12-month extension from what is in current law.
When are we gonna hear from the proponents of the Charlton Amendment for a reason for doing it, and what's the answer?
I can't speak for that, sorry.
Just more time for housing to be built is what everybody's been saying. We have not heard that from towns. We have gotten a lot of letters from towns that say everything related to Act 181 is an overreach, you know, and so we believe that there are some towns that would not want this. I think it's really the development, the community that would just love more exemptions.
And I think I just want to add that this was talked about in committee, testimony was taken. And so the question should be, why did the committee vote the way they did? And I think you talked about that, and that was an 11-0 vote.
Yeah, I guess I'd just reinforce, we're trying to be logical here about when exemptions should expire. And the exemptions originally were aligned in Act 181 with the provisions to create Tier 1A and Tier 1B areas where certain kinds of developments would be exempt from Act 250 because the municipality had the capacity and was demonstrating the capacity and was approved by the Land Use Review Board. They had the capacity to do that level of development review on their own. It's almost a delegated authority from the state to the municipality. And so, Act 181, those dates aligned with when Tier 1A and 1B would roughly be underway. And so we have, with some date extensions and considering that some municipalities are still trying to figure out whether they want to be a 1B town, and we've heard testimony that there's some things we could do that we are doing in this bill to make it more palatable and a better fit for municipalities to choose 1B. So we are making some modifications in this bill to support municipalities to choose that. And this gives an entire year for some of those municipalities to go back and say, oh, actually, I do want to be a 1B town. So again, we're trying to follow the original intent of this work to align this with when Tier 1A and 1B exemptions are in place.
Yeah, I'm not here to speak for Representative Charlton, and I can't tell you that. Representative Herbolz, Bristol, Lincoln, Moncton, Starksville. And I can't say that I can speak for Representative Charlton, and I don't think I fully understand all the nuances of exemptions and end dates, start dates and stuff like that. I do get the sense of where he's coming from, however, and I think it has to do with folks in rural Vermont who really need more housing. And I think this is maybe just a small piece, maybe just a reflection of that transparency. It is really too bad that it's turned into a bit of a partisan issue, because I think that's an issue that we really should be able to get behind, all of us. Maybe we have different ways of doing it. So again, I'm not speaking for him, but I think that's the impulse for why he's presenting that kind of.
I'm just gonna say one more time, the committee took extensive testimony. January 1st, 2028, as it passed out from 325, was an 11-0 vote.
Angela and Pat. Angela Larson from Williston. I guess not a question, but a comment that this brief discussion for me illuminates exactly why we should be relying on the committee. This is Act 250 we're talking about. This entire bill is about Act 250. There are lots of things that a lot of us would love to see happen with Act 250. Is a floor amendment the right place to do that work? I just, no. It's so complex. It's so nuanced. And the fact that those of us not on the committee sitting here listening to this, don't even know what the extension, what the purpose of the extension is, what it would imply, what it would change. We have no business voting yes for an amendment that where we lack those basic, understandings. And I really rely on the work of the committee, and they've spent a ton of time on this. In a reversal, and a dramatic reversal. And we can't discount that. So I will vote with the committee on these amendments. I hope others do the same.
Hi, Rose. Kathleen James from Manchester. I actually just wanted to follow up on Representative Arsenault's comment. One thing, this is kind of an aside, but one thing I've sort of increasingly heard lately is, well, what would the opponents say? Where are they coming from? If you don't know the answer to that, it probably means you weren't in the committee to hear all the testimony and discussion. And I'm always uncomfortable with trying to speak for other people. We shouldn't be doing that. And so that's just something I feel strongly about. So, and as a committee chair, I'm going to also add that we spend hours and hours and hours of time bringing in witnesses, reading written testimony, reading the statutes, talking to ledge counsel, so that we can bring informed bills to the floor, so that we can answer every question, so that we can make informed decisions. And I don't care, how great an amendment sounds on the floor in the 10 or 15 minutes that somebody's presenting an amendment. That's not a considered opinion. I'm sorry to be blunt, guys, but we deal with complex testimony, and we spend time in committees building up expertise. That's the whole point of the committee system, so that we can have subject area, policy area expertise that builds up in many cases over years, or at the very least over a biennium. And so, if you're hearing me as someone who is strongly hardwired to support the committee on a floor amendment, it's because I am, and it's because I trust the work that they're doing, and I don't trust myself to sit on the floor for 5 minutes and be like, oh, sounds good. So that's where I'm coming from.
Okay, let's go to the second amendment. Second amendment.
Okay, that was good segue on. So the next amendment is from Representative Dobrovich, and it pertains to a new housing exemption that was sent over in the Senate bill that our committee declined to include in our strike all amendment. It would essentially have, it would allow housing exemption of 50 units or fewer housing with at least 20% of the units of mixed income within areas of designated village centers, any village center, whether a town has zoning or development review or not. Within an area, within a quarter mile of an area served by public water and sewer system. We declined to include this in our bill, and then came back with the addition of the legislative body may vote not to grant the exemption for individual projects. So this is a very confusing amendment. He did go back and find that there are 60 towns that have no zoning, ergo, no development review. And this is up to 50 units in a village area in a town with no development review. I guess, so our committee found this unfavorable on a 7-4 vote. Yeah, because it feels like these are communities who have likely then, depending on Act 250, to review larger scale developments in their towns for decades. And it feels like we're blindsiding them with something like this. And we.
Yep, so a couple questions.
Thanks, Robin Shaw from Middlebury. Did I hear you right that the legislature was gonna approve these?
Town body.
The select
Oh, the
board.
legislative body,
Yes,
not
of the
us. Oh,
municipal-
good,
yes.
okay. Yeah, that would be a bit much.
Mike has one.
Thanks, Mike Boyd at Hartford. I just want to reiterate that this provision was taken out of SB 25, unanimously out of our committee, and now it's back, and it's including an incredibly ambiguous sentence at the end. The powers of select boards to basically veto projects. So it was taken out of the bill originally, now it's back in a grotesquely altered form, and I would say vote no.
Any other questions? All right, so both of these amendments were voted unfavorably. Much of the language of both of them was in the committee bill. The dates were in as 2028, was voted at 11-0. And as Amy and Mike just said, the other provision, the committee agreed to take it out during that 11-0 vote. So I just want to remind people, this act, or 325, Act 181, it's been a long road, right? We've all heard from a lot of people. We've had a lot of action alerts. The committee has done really thoughtful work. They've taken a lot of testimony. They've listened to our communities. They've listened to all of you, and they put together a thoughtful compromise of a bill that, as Angela pointed out, has a lot of things in it that we probably don't all have perfect knowledge of, but the committee does. And the committee voted 11-0. We need to respect their work. We need to follow the committee on votes on these, and I am asking the body to vote no on both of these amendments. And then hopefully we will easily get to the bill and we can all vote yes on a really good bill. All right, we are due back on the floor.